Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Truth Paranormal. This is going to be a very interesting episode indeed, if I don't say so myself. Now, this episode is all about explaining how you're not secure against alien AI intrusion. Okay, now alien AI intrusion is a big phrase. Okay, you're probably going to think, I lost my marbles. But there's actually plenty of evidence to suggest there is an alien AI entity that covers the Earth and the Moon at the very minimum. It might cover the solar system, might cover the galaxy, I don't know. But it covers the Earth-Moon system, and it's managed by physical flesh and blood aliens that reside under specific locations around the world. And we can get onto that in episode 6, where they are. But for now, I'm just talking about how to secure, how to, not secure, but how to avoid the worst aspects of alien intrusion. And this is not something that's going to affect most of you. It's only going to affect those of you who are locking horns with the entity, who are maybe living in a haunted house, or actively trying to find this alien AI by going to these locations where the flesh and blood element exists. Okay. So before further ado, next, back up what I'm saying. If you don't believe there's an alien AI intrusion, let's go straight to what Brandon Fugel has to say about it. And he's the owner of Skinwalker Ranch.
Refer to the phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch as a precognitive, sentient, non-human intelligence.
So there's
an intelligence based on the data. There is an intelligence operating on that ranch that has command over space, time, over consciousness, can manipulate closed systems in a split second without leaving a trace, and I believe has the ability to communicate if we can understand or develop a common language at some point to be able to interact. Eric Bard, in particular, has had communication with at least one of these entities involved with manipulating the systems that has command over the technology and the platforms, and has expounded on that a little bit. He'll be, I think, addressing that a bit more in the future. We're going to be discussing it on the docuseries this next year. But he's definitely seen and documented evidence that we're dealing with an intelligence that does have the desire to communicate.
Can you go into the communication a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, in his case, when he asked out of frustration for a sign, when he commanded when the systems were being manipulated and he was dealing with security violations that were occurring repeatedly with our surveillance cameras, he literally asked verbally out loud, if you have something to show me, show me. If you have something to tell me, tell me. And in that instant, the screen morphed, melted, and digitally composed letters. He had the presence of mind, just as he did in October 2016, to screen capture what was happening with his iPhone. Thank heavens he proceeded to record and screen capture in real time what was happening with the equipment. And what was revealed was what I believe to be compelling evidence that we're dealing with an intelligence that is at least willing to acknowledge and wants their presence known.
Were you able to translate it into anything?
Yeah, it'll be shown on television, but it essentially had the simple response, again, instantaneously, of I living.
You're shitting me.
So
Whoa.
Eric Bard, in response to a host of issues with the security cameras registering that there was something triggering the motion sensors, that there were countless events occurring. Upon giving that command, saw the entire screen morph and form the letters I living, and then snap back. All documented, all caught on camera. That has yet to be fully addressed on the docuseries, but is going to be addressed in the future. And it's really his story to tell, but if he were here, he'd be telling you the same story. It was compelling evidence that we're dealing with an intelligence on the ranch that has the ability to manipulate technology and systems instantaneously, and has the ability to communicate, and has intention. There's volition.
Now, this is actually a big moment because this is probably our first written communication with an alien AI entity. Okay, and I'll just to bring up the image of the screenshot of the I living image whilst I'm just speaking now. And when you look at it, you realize how advanced the alien AI must be to have access to the computer system, or at the very least, the monitor, and to be able to instantly change the graphics and write that message. But it also tells you the limitations of the AI itself, because as you might note, the grammar is not correct. I living is not the proper way to write it. I am living, or I am alive is better, but I living is not grammatically correct. Now, a super advanced alien AI system would know that. So there's limitations. Now, I'm not saying it's dumb. It's just that its focus up to this point has not been trying to communicate us through written words on the screen, or written words full stop. So it's probably something it could learn in 5 minutes if it was to just scan our grammar books and our language books and stuff like that. But it clearly hasn't done that as of yet. And this AI system there's very strong evidence that it's been around for tens of thousands of years. And of course, AI can learn. So it's been learning about us as we evolve and develop. So I find that really, really interesting, the whole thing. And obviously, Brander's testimony lends it a bit of credence. If you're following Skinwalker Ranch, it's available on Amazon Prime. And you have to pay a subscription to get to the History Channel, but it's well worth watching the Skinwalker Ranch series if you haven't already. Now, we're slightly veering off the topic of security here, but you can understand that if you can hack your computer system, or at the very least hack your monitor, then it shows a very high level of both technical dexterity and indeed the capability to do it instantly. So that tells us two things. Now, in the news, yesterday, Friday, the 8th of May, the Pentagon released, I think, 160 new UFO files that have been classified up to now, so they're not seen by the general public before. I'll just put a QR code up on the screen so you can follow that link and have a look for yourself at those files. But of note, as of yesterday, declassified files to do with interviews with the Apollo astronauts, talking about various phenomena that they saw on the moon. Strange lights, strange the way they moved was strange. And bear in mind, in 1969, 1970, 1971, there was nothing else orbiting the moon other than the module, and there was no other activity that would account for all these different lights and phenomena. So that tells you, and also the characteristic three stars in a triangle were seen many times on the moon. So that gives you an idea of the fact that this is the alien AI, which so characteristically has three white dots forming a triangle, on a daily basis around the Earth somewhere. So we know that the alien AI machine encompasses the Earth and the moon. It is there to keep the aliens who live under the mountains and our ground, and maybe in the oceans, safe from other genuine extraterrestrial beings. And the alien AI can actually, if humans were to rise up and cause a problem, then the alien AI is able to reset human civilization as a defense measure. Although it's notable that its preference is very much not to do that, because we're kind of the cannon fodder. If an alien extraterrestrial attack happens, we'd be the first sort of layer of it to have to fight its way through. In other words, it would have to put up with us fighting it before the alien AI needs to do anything, and before the aliens themselves need to do anything. And so the alien AI definitely wants us around, but until we become a problem. Okay. So so I'm going to get onto the security now. I'm going to be talking about the fifth dimension. But as always, we're going to be looking first at the analogy between 2D and 3D as an analogy between the third dimension and the fifth dimension. The fourth dimension is time. So we're going to just start off by talking about computer security. Okay, so imagine that our plane of existence, using the 2D, 3D analogy, we have a computer here. This is our computer, splayed out in 2 dimensions for ease of visualization. And so this is our plane of existence. This is the computer. You could have the monitor, and you could have all the little chips, and memory circuits and processors within the computer, all laid out in 2 dimensions. Now, for a higher dimension, in this case the third dimension, you can access each byte and bit of any system directly. So it doesn't matter, you can attack it from 2 directions in this case. It doesn't matter how secure this is in terms of software security or hardware security. It can just access any atom, any electron in this computer and flip it, change its 1 to 0. It can change any 1 to 0. If it's encrypted, we are talking about an alien AI system here, so it's very possible it knows everything about encryption, that our encryption would seem like Stone Age encryption to it. It could probably decrypt anything. That's an assumption, I don't know. There may be some encryption that's inherently safe, like quantum encryption, but then I'm not entirely sure whether quantum is an aspect of the fifth dimension that we don't fully understand. So it can basically delete files, it can add files, it can tell your computer to do something else, it can just play havoc with it. It can, if this computer has a battery attached to it or in it, like a laptop, it can play around with electrons. It can make that battery go flat in 5 minutes, which is a very commonly observed phenomena when trying to capture UFOs, ghosts, or whatever. If you're in a haunted house, your battery goes flat unexpectedly fast. It can basically do anything it wants with those electrons. It could remove them altogether. It could, move them around from the. I don't quite know how batteries work, but it can move it to the charge bit, to the bit where it would normally travel to instantly. I don't know, but it's got full access to every atom, every electron in anything. And it can flip it, it can move it, it can make it disappear. So you can imagine that with this dexterity and with the intelligence behind it, it's more than capable of accessing files on your computer, no matter where your computer is. This computer could be in a concrete bunker somewhere, but of course it's just open. That's your concrete bunker, but it's open to attack from the fifth dimension, or in this case, the third dimension, because it's only secure in the dimension that you're building the bunker in. If we then talk about brain security, so again in the two-dimensional world, you're sitting there next to stuff. I'm not very good at drawing brains in 2 dimension, but say that's your brain. Okay, I didn't get an A at art at school, and that's your brain, so that you've got that laid out in 2 dimensions. Okay, and all your little neurons and synapses all dotted around. Again, with a similar thing to the computers from a higher dimension, the alien AI can move electrons around. It can change states. It could introduce chemicals. It could take away chemicals. It could, if it wanted to, take away serotonin, remove the chemical altogether, and make you instantly depressed, instantly suicidal. Okay, bear that in mind when it comes to the 10 missing scientists and how some of them just literally walked out the house, leaving their phone and everything else behind and just disappearing. So the alien AI's ability to make somebody feel very suicidal instantly is certainly possible, because it can take or add any kind of chemical to any part of your mind. Okay, if it knew how to read brains, which it might have perfected over the many thousands of years it's lived amongst humans, it may be able to even read your mind. It's even possible it can put thoughts into your head. And some people, when talking about their experience with alien AI or perceived aliens that are actually projections from the fifth dimension generated by the alien AI, they sometimes talk about voices coming from within their head. No, so they're not hearing voices or hearing commands. They're sensing that the commands themselves are coming from their own mind. Okay, this could be the ability for the alien AI to literally get to the synapses that give us the impression that we're hearing something. Okay, so it's like rather than it going through your ears, this signal is being dropped straight into your brain rather than going through your ears first. So you're hearing a voice that literally your ears can't hear. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that's a very powerful, a tool that the alien AI has. It can make us want to jump off a bridge. It can put thoughts into our head. It can talk to us. It can read our minds, maybe. So that's just very, very interesting. And for a communal garden device that we have, that we carry around all the time, is a mobile phone. So again, a mobile phone in the 2 dimensions analogy is, I used to be able to draw it with a small screen, but now it's all screen. But you've got your icons there. But again, like a computer, it can delve straight in there and it can change things. It can flatten the battery. It can rewrite files, delete files, etc. I'm just going to play the next little video clip. Again, Brandon Fugel talking about his experience with Eric Bard and the fact that his phone was temporarily hijacked by this alien AI.
I hear Eric Bard, the physicist, start shouting down, Brandon, get up here. I looked up and I yelled, I said, really? To join him? He says, yes, get up here right now. He's pointing to his iPhone. So I shrug. go booking it up the face of the mesa in my dress shoes and my slacks, and as I arrive out of breath at the top of the mesa, he's sitting there looking at his phone and motions for me to watch his iPhone. We sit there in silence for minutes. Nothing's happening. I see nothing unusual. I'm like, what are you talking about? And Eric says, well, you should have seen it. My phone was malfunctioning in the most strange ways. It was turning all sorts of magenta, purple color.
So there you go. That's Eric Bard's experience with the alien AI interfering with his phone. Again, not an easy thing to do. It may be that it's just interfering with the actual screen and not the processes that generate images for the screen to change. The fact he was able to do a screenshot would suggest that the rest of the phone was working, but the alien AI was taking over the actual pixels of the actual screen itself. So we're going to move on to physical security. So you've got your two-dimensional analogy. This is you. Okay. You're in your concrete bunker. That concrete bunker could be on the Earth or on the moon, for this matter. And you're thinking you're safe from this alien AI. Well, sadly, you'd be wrong. Because again, with its fifth dimensional abilities, it can just access anything from a higher dimension. So it can still read your mind. It can still reprogram your computer or delete files. So physical security is null and void. If you happen to go and see if you go and visit a scary, let's see if I can do a ghost here. Terrible ghost. But if you visit a ghost and you interact with it, or if you go looking for these aliens, which the locations I'll be giving in episode 6, then you may see paranormal activities. You may end up dead, depending how much of a threat the alien AI thinks you are presenting to the aliens underground. But if you then move in a car or walking or fly a jet to another location, maybe 100 miles away, then what's known as the hitchhiker effect means that the alien AI has actually tracked you. So although you could have gone through tunnels, you could have spent time in a house and emerged dressed differently, the alien AI can see terrible drawing of an eye there, but can see everything you do from the high dimensions. That's why it's able to track you. Okay, and you could fly halfway around the world, it would still follow you. And so the things you might have seen here, the orbs, the shadow beings, which are nothing more than just fifth dimensional projections, those effects, those things will travel back with you back to your home. And this has been observed countless times, hundreds of times. So the security is not great. In haunted houses, if you had a haunted house, let's just do haunted houses. This is another well-known thing that Patrick Jackson discovered. Is if you're in a haunted house, and of course the type 3 orbs are wanting ideally to have the house to themselves so they could communicate with other haunted houses and form the global network that we talk about in episode 1. And then these orbs, they want you out of the house, which is why they haunt it. They try to frighten you away from the house. But if you don't, they have the ability to microwaves in your direction, usually from very close quarters, maybe just a few meters away, and they microwave your brain, which is always going to end up badly if you microwave your brain. So the one security thing you can do is to keep moving around, because obviously microwaves in this case are very directional. So if you were to move your brain to a different room, within this two-dimensional world. For you to move it there, it would take maybe a few seconds to a minute for the orb to move and find you again. Even though it can track you, the fact is you've moved, it has to move. And so that might buy you some time. So if you feel like you've been microwaved, and that could be ringing in the ears or something like that, or just the sound of air escaping your brain as your brain gets physically heated up, then my advice to you is move out of that room. Because it could be that you're in a haunted house and don't realize it, and it just wants the orb just wants you out of that room or out of that house, because it wants to broadcast to its other orbs. So that's the only physical thing you can do, and that's only really relevant if you've been blasted by microwave radiation. Now, with sort of going back to this alien AI, the trouble with it is that as I say, human beings are useful to it as a line of defense. If thousands of extraterrestrials came down, okay, they would have to get through us first before they could get to the flesh and blood aliens under the mountains and maybe under the sea. But we could pose a threat to themselves. Okay, if I reveal the locations of where they are in episode 6, there is a moral hazard that people would go and threaten them, attack them, or even if they didn't, the aliens could perceive their sudden interest in them as being a threat. And of course, there is tantalizing evidence that the alien AI has in the past had to reset civilization. Okay, it's not definitive, because natural events can occur that would end civilizations. But the alien AI is more than capable of creating hazards which look maybe superficially natural. It could, out of thin air, using the fifth dimension, conjure up 2 or 3 small asteroids traveling very fast and hit the Earth in several places. Okay, that would look to us natural, but the telltale sign is the asteroids wouldn't be there until the last minute. They would literally appear out of nowhere, out of thin air or thin vacuum, and they wouldn't necessarily come from afar. They would sort of pop into existence maybe just above our atmosphere, traveling at God knows what speed. And the idea was that you wouldn't want to exterminate the human race, but you'd want to take it back a few thousand years. And there's tantalizing evidence that's done this before. So there is a moral hazard here that if people know where these aliens are, then, and they come in sufficient numbers, then we could be perceived a threat. And it's really important emphasizing that if these aliens have been here for millions of years, then we should really treat them as fellow Earthlings. They've been here for so long, and they may even be not aliens at all. It may be their previous civilizations. Who knows? But I think we have to treat them with respect, because they've been here for millions of years. And how we treat Aboriginal races, they should be. We should treat them with courtesy, and the fact that they're here, they're not really causing any problems. Let them stay in their caverns, their caves, and just like we do with small ethnic groups around the world, we sort of leave them alone. We leave them in their reserve or whatever. Now, to some extent, the American government may have actually done this anyway by creating these national parks exactly over where the aliens live. Does seem to suggest that somebody high up in the American government have done this many, many decades ago to sort of act as a reserve where by law you're not allowed to do any digging, you're not allowed to do any mining, and therefore these underground places are protected, by virtue of the fact you can't by law do any digging or mining. So maybe that's coincidence, but it seems like when you look at where they are, it very much tallies with where the national parks are. So I like to think this is a bit of joined up thinking by those high up in the government. For the UK, I don't see, there's no evidence to suggest that that has occurred at all. As I say, I've been to many national parks and I'm not aware of any great number of missing people. I'm not aware of any particular paranormal activities. So the national parks in the UK seem to have been established for the obvious reasons of protecting, irreplaceable scenic lands of beauty. So I hope that's sort of covered everything. Unless you are locking horns with the alien AI, it's very unlikely to ever make its presence known to you. You might be lucky, you might see a UFO, you might see, if you're unlucky, you might see a ghost. All these things are generated, as I explore in episode 2, by this alien AI. It's done for very logical reasons. What we've seen from Skinwalker Ranch is evidence that it exists, and from the released Pentagon files, we can see that its range extends to that of the moon. And by the way, although the Artemis 2 crew have probably been gagged in a very similar way to the Apollo astronauts, it may be that they will in time come out with their own observations and thoughts about this. They may have seen things as well that they have been instructed to keep quiet about. So that's the sort of the end of this episode. In the next episode, I'm going to do a book review, and we're going to be going through which books should you read if you want to be persuaded on the stacks of evidence about certain aspects of what we've covered to date on Truth Paranormal. I've read many books, as you might well imagine, and they are rich with third-party evidence, and these are things that you could, if you so wish, want to read to convince yourself that these things that I speak about are real. And then the week after that is where to go if you want to find the alien, but be careful. Never travel alone. Be aware of what you're doing. You are effectively poking the hornet's nest. So don't be surprised if you get stung. It's not something I've done yet. I have not done it, mainly because it's quite expensive to fly to the States to where these locations are. I'm desperately trying to find out similar locations in the UK, which there will be a few for sure. But as yet, I have not found enough data to pinpoint where they live in the UK. But in America, there's a lot more data to highlight where they are. Right, okay, that's it. Thanks so much for listening, and goodbye.